to assist children and youth in time of war and crisis. That is the topic of this part. And this is also the topic of what I'm doing research on and working with clinically. My name is Jon-Håkon Schultz. I'm an educational psychologist working as a professor at the Arctic University of Norway. And the subtitle, How Teachers and School Can Help the Pupils. That is the topic. I have been working in various crisis and war contexts around the world. And the interesting part is that even though the crisis and the wars are of course very different, some similarities is found. And this is what we will look at in these three sections. I will start with the first section, that is, you will see the overview here. This is about how stress affects school functioning. We will look shortly at the cognitive implications. We will see how stress reduces the learning capacity. And we will stress the fact that these reactions, the stress reactions, are actually normal reactions to an abnormal situation. And with that, I mean that it's not behavior problems, even though it can actually look like that in the classroom. Okay, let's look at these reactions. Again, normal reactions to abnormal situations. It can be being afraid. And being afraid when you're not really supposed to be afraid. Problems sleeping, you can have nightmares, and the bad thing about these type of nightmares is that they are bringing you back to the situation that you experienced during the war, and this sets your body off in an alarm situation. You're really waking up from the nightmare feeling very stressed and afraid, and it can make it difficult to fall back asleep again, meaning you will come to school without enough sleep. Unwanted thoughts. This is a typical reaction. You can get it in the school, in the classroom where you are sitting, and suddenly you don't want to, but automatically you are thinking about what happened during the war. And this will also cause lots of stress and unpleasant feelings, and you will not be able to concentrate during the class. You are constantly stressed is one reaction. And of course, all these are leading to reduced concentration in school and elsewhere. You can be sad or depressed. Social withdrawal, this is a frequent reaction. You, after being exposed to a traumatic event like war or other types of crisis, you stop being socially active. You stop being out with friends. You're not playing with friends anymore. And as time goes by, this is problematic. Feeling worthless and anger are two other very typical reactions. If you look at the cognitive implications, meaning what is going on inside the brain, this is rather complex, and there is no need really to go deep into the understanding of this. Research knows a lot about this, but there is still things we don't really know. But what we do know is that as long as you have these reactions, you will have what is said here, a temporary reduced cognitive functioning. That means as long as you have these reactions of traumatic stress, your capacity to learn will be reduced. The cognitive functioning, the reduction in cognitive functioning is about auditive memory. This means that you won't be able to remember as easily what is said. So what is said by the teacher in the classroom would be difficult for you to remember. Concentration is difficult because there's so many other things going on in your brain, so there's not enough focus to focus. Storing knowledge. The way you used to store knowledge when you learn something new, this is stored in your brain. When there's so much going on, there will be difficulties with storing. This means also that when you later on try to remember what you learned, the retrieval of that knowledge will be reduced. So it's difficult to learn and difficult to remember what you just learned. There is also one mechanism that is affected. It's called executive functioning. It's rather complicated, but again, if you should explain it easily, it's about planning, organizing, time management, it's working memory, self-control, flexibility. I will show just a few points. This is also about executive functioning. So the child, when the executive functioning is reduced, you might have problems with incorporate the feedback into work or an activity. So it's difficult to hear what the teacher is saying and do it. The child can have trouble paying attention and is easily distracted. This is something we mentioned several times, the focus and concentration. And also number 3, loses a train of thought when interrupted. So you're easily interrupted, and when you're interrupted, you forgot what you were thinking about. Number 4, needs to be told the directions many times. You need to be reminded of what you were supposed to do. Number 5, has trouble making decisions. Number 6, has a tough time switching gears from one activity to another. Number 7, isn't able to think about or to do more than one thing at a time. And the last one is very typical. It's like you used to be able to do many things at the same time and it worked out. Now your capacity is reduced, so you have really more than enough by only doing one thing. And as you see here, there are variations of, well, these 3 looks rather sad, all 3 of them. But we should remember that this is, it's again normal reactions to an abnormal situation. And the reactions can change quite a lot. You can have one day where you are actually feeling rather well. And then you can get these unwanted thoughts and you're really taken back to and distressed, and you will not be able that day to work, to learn at school. So you have to remember that it's really changing. Okay, I will summarize this first section on the blackboard. The first thing to remember and to keep in mind is that there is a temporary reduced cognitive functioning. And this is about learning capacity. So it's temporary. The reduction exists as long as the various reactions are present. So as long as you have these reactions or symptoms, your school functioning will be reduced. This can last for several years or it can be shorter. So it's important, if it lasts for a long time, you lose years of education if not effective educational measures are provided. This is why it's so important for you as a teacher to be, what I can say, proactive, to check out, to be close with the child, to see how is your learning process going? How are you doing now? And keep in mind that this can change from one day to another. But you need to be close on and continue monitoring the progress of learning for a long time. Okay, welcome back to this section 2 on how school and teachers can help pupils that have experienced war and other types of crisis. In this section, we will look at the empirical evidence for post-disaster intervention. And we will specifically look at 5 elements of post-disaster intervention. This is important because this little section is about research and the evidence that we have found to be effective, what actually can help children to recover after they have experienced war and crisis. Okay, so if we look at a trauma recovery, children that are experiencing a potential traumatic event. Some children are getting high reactions right away and they maintain high reactions. And they need help in order to recover. Quite many will have high reactions and gradually these reactions will subside as time goes by. And if we look at the percentage of this, we will see that about 30% will maintain high levels and 70% of the children will have reactions that gradually subside as time goes by. This is the question. Does the problems just go away? Does they go away by themselves? This specific question has been thought about for centuries, decades by researchers and many others. And the answer to it is actually no. The problems doesn't go away by themselves. We have found out, a team of researchers where a few years ago in 2007 looked at all available research and managed to identify 5 factors that improve or changes or reduce actually the problems. And this is what is called evidence-informed framework for post-disaster intervention. And this is made by Hopful and colleagues. So if you want to read more into this, you have the reference Hopful and colleagues in 2007. And these 5 principles are safety, it's a sense of calming, it's connectedness, coming back to your social life, self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is about the belief that you can actually influence your own situation. So you can do something to feel better. If you have high levels of stress, you can learn strategies that reduces your own stress. And when you manage to do this, this is what's called self-efficacy. So the ability to change your own situation. The last one is hope. It's about hope for the future and re-establishing hope. Each and one of these principles work by themselves, but also in connection with the other ones. And the whole point of this is that in a good school or a good kindergarten, all of these principles will be present in a school. And but they doesn't happen by itself. So you actually need a facilitator. You would need a teacher that helps you get to use these principles. And let me just develop a little about these 5 principles. We've also called it promoters of school functioning, meaning it's only not the well-being itself, but it also helps you to function better at school. So let me just shortly go through them. Being able to calm down. Well, it's easy when you've experienced stress and traumatic stress to be reminded about what happened, right? So you can sit in the classroom and be reminded of what happened during the war, and this will lose concentration. You will not be able to concentrate in school. So and you will be very stressed when you have these experiences, these unwanted thoughts. So when you manage to do some exercises to calm yourself down, this is a good ability, and this is something we have to train on with the students. And just being at school will provide you a sense of safety and stability, right? You will be integrated into the routines in the school, and it helps you to obtain this sense of safety and stability. And again, what I was pointing out, the power to change the situation. These exercises that you learn can give you the assurance that you're actually able to influence your own situation. And another part of that is also to ask the teacher for help, or ask other parents or other grown-ups for help. And as I pointed out earlier, connecting with others, getting back to social activity, it's so important, because social withdrawal is one of the frequent challenges that happens after a traumatic event. And again, re-establishing hope. And as I was pointing out, in a functioning school, all of these principles are present, but it is up to the teacher to actually facilitate that they will happen, and that each student can benefit from these 5 principles. To summarize up, well, I think I just summarized, but the 5 principles are present in a good school. And this is why we usually advise children and parents to get the children that have experienced a crisis or disaster, to get them back to school as soon as possible. This is because these 5 elements are present in the school. But children and adolescents need support to benefit from the principles. And last, teachers and parents are often the best supporters to make these 5 principles active, so in order for the children to benefit. Okay, welcome back to this 3rd section. We will look at being a teacher for war and crisis affected students. How do you do that? I will particularly look at 2 points. And this is something I call negotiating the teacher role in order to be more suited for a crisis context. And also about providing educational measures, because you would need some different educational measures in order to support these students. Okay, what we also will look at is well-being plus academic functioning equals school functioning. So school functioning has 2 items, well-being and academic functioning, and both of them needs to work together in order to achieve good school functioning. Well, we see the girl here. She has tried but failed on her exam or her test. This is a frequent thing happening, that children that used to be rather good at school are not as good as they used to be. But some might, as this boy, continue as they used to, and it might vary a little. These 2 students can suddenly switch roles as well. Okay, let's start with the point of improving school functioning and about negotiating the teacher role. What I mean with that is that in different countries, there you have different ways of being a teacher, slightly different ways of being a teacher. And you need to balance this teacher role in order to include both school well-being and academic functioning. It might be easy to just focusing on academic functioning and forget about school well-being, and the other way around. So my point is that you need to make sure that both parts are taken care of. You will not get good school functioning if you don't score on both of these two, both well-being and academic functioning. They work together. We also need to empower the teachers. The teachers need information on how stress alters students' school functioning. And this is what we've been talking about in these 3 sections, right? Traumatic stress affects the learning capacity. If you have a sleepy or unconcentrated student, that doesn't mean that it is an unmotivated student, right? It is easy to think that as a teacher, and it's rather irritating if you when you are working as a teacher and your students is not paying attention. But this is what we have to remind ourselves as teachers, that there might be other reasons why the child, the student, is not behaving as she or he should, paying attention. I can't put enough emphasis on the point that teachers have a crucial role in the context of crisis. They are the one that really can help the child to recover after crisis. And in order to do that, you also need to look if there is other educational measures that you can provide, adapted educational measures. As it says here, provide adapted measures for both well-being and academic functioning. Again, both these 2 points. Academic functioning, identify the academic rest capacity and build on what works. Okay, so rest capacity, what I mean with that is the student is not necessarily as good as she used to be or he used to be. So he used to function rather good, but it's not functioning optimally now because there is so much going on. So you can think that there is a rest capacity. It's not as good as she used to be. There is a rest capacity, and you as a teacher need to use that rest capacity to identify it, stimulate it, and use it. That might be, for instance, to give them fewer assignments, and maybe you also need to sit down with them to go through the study skills. How are you working with this assignment? How do you do your homework? Can we do it in a different way? You know, can you take notes and help them with notes taking and looking through, have a discussion with the students. How is the best way for you to be a student right now? What we need to, well, this is a summary slide. Educational measures for education in emergency, because this is what we're doing. It's an emergency setting. The children have been in emergency, and this is usually what we call it. We're doing education in an emergency setting. The stress levels are high. We need to reduce it. We need to work with the study skills to improve them. And as you can see on the circle here on the side, we have these 5 principles that we need to get working for the child. We need to work with the student. We need to improve teachers' teaching, to enhance their teaching, to get their sensitized into the changed capacity for learning for students. And we need parents to be involved so they can support what the school is doing and support the children at home. The last summary slide here is about negotiate the teacher role. You need to strike the right balance between school well-being and academic functioning. I'm repeating this because it's so important to strike a balance between these two. And teachers and parents are often the best supporters for helping children in this difficult situation. And it is so important to empower parents to follow up at home. This is also the what the teachers need to do in order to help the students learn, to get parents on board.